So for the U.S. men's national team's Copa America grade, it has to be an F, right? There's like nothing else that it could be. Let us know in the comments, but right? I mean, at best, it's like a D+.
You know, I knew. I told you when we were in the cafe, I said, I'm going to go crazy. Okay. And only you could go crazier than me. I went with a D.
A D?
A D.
So let me guess. Let me put myself in your brain. Again, y'all let us know what you think. And hit subscribe if you like U.S. men's national team content. You're saying Tim Weah's red card stopped it from being an F because he threw the tournament single-handedly.
And so it begins. No, that is not what I was going to say. I was going to say that I saw enough that I liked from the U.S. men's national team in spite of the horrific result, the embarrassing result, the laughably typical result, to where I could not give it an F all of the way. And yes, Timothy Weah's red card does put it, or does contribute to that letter grade.
I see. Yeah, go get your notes, boy. The wind here is a different beast at the moment. I see what you're saying about that, but you have to look at the end of the day what was achieved, which is 3 points, a 2-0 win against Bolivia, and you're the host nation. I think it's the first time that the host has been eliminated at the Copa America, maybe ever, or it's been a very, very long time.
In the group stage?
Yeah.
Don't get it twisted. I'm not saying we had a good Copa America. I'm saying that this result is laughable. It is laughable. That being said, I've seen things from this U.S. men's national team, this tournament, that I haven't seen before. And I want to give them a smidgen of credit, 1 letter grade worth of credit. Because if you're looking at the rubric here, what I said I wanted coming into this tournament was that I wanted the U.S. men's national team to play competitively, and I wanted to see a mentality change. And frankly, this might be where it goes crazy, oddly enough. Okay. I think you got to give Greg credit for that.
The mentality change?
I think...
What mentality?
I think his man management.
What mentality? The U.S. got grouped. What mentality?
What do you mean, what mentality? For us to be competitive with 10 men and then competitive against an Uruguay who, at least at that point of the tournament, we thought should have smacked us 3-0.
Yeah.
For us to lose by a margin of 1 goal.
How did those games end?
For us to lose by a margin of 1 goal twice, I think is indicative of an unwillingness to go down, to give up, and in spite of that red card, we were noticeably shocked, and I think we played a damn good game after that. We potentially score the goal of the tournament immediately after. That's not something that a U.S. men's national team of old would be able to do.
Dude, but that has nothing to do with Berhalter, and has nothing to do whatsoever with mentality. That's Balogun being good.
I think that it does have to do with mentality, and it does have to do with Berhalter. It's everything else, every other shortcoming that doesn't have to do with that. Look, I even went so far as to write this down right here. Okay. You ready?
Please write it down. Because
right here. I have it. I have it. Let me see if I can if I articulated it any better here.
Let's hear it.
I said the overall grade was a D because we played with more desire and posture than I anticipated, but at the end of the day, they didn't do their job. I feel like Greg did his according to my expectations. According to my expectations. His man management had our mentality in a good place. We remained competitive in all games, but could not execute. And that is why you take away everything else. We failed in every possible aspect of the rubric. I mean, we collapsed tremendously. Everywhere except for our mental. You could feel the vitriol that the team felt. It was unjust in the way that we exited, but at the end of the day, it's valid because we lost the one game that we needed to win.
It wasn't unjust, though. U.S. getting grouped wasn't unjust. I mean, like, I hear what you're saying.
If Timothy Weah doesn't get a red card, we win that game.
I think you're right in saying that the red card, especially against a very good Panama side, does make that individual result seem less embarrassing. But at the end of the day, you still got grouped. And I'm trying to think of the main point I want to say about this. I think you can say that the U.S. get an F grade, and there were still some positive things to take away. That's what I would take home from this. But take Colombia, for example. Colombia were a man down for 75 minutes against Uruguay, and they won the game.
But that's Colombia. That's Colombia. That is a 28-game win streak. Colombia. There's
Against
different levels.
Uruguay when the U.S. is playing Panama. And the U.S. came into the Copa America in the most trash group.
I think that this is apples and oranges here. I think you cannot compare. My expectations for the USA were not the same as my expectations for Colombia. I don't think you can
I agree with
compare
that.
this.
I thought Colombia would win the tournament, and they didn't. I never thought the U.S. would make it past the quarterfinal. But
Wrong.
But okay,
Who won?
Argentina won.
I just wanted to hear it again.
Okay, I can't believe you giving a D is embarrassing for the U.S. Why are you
One letter grade.
Why are you letting these guys off the hook? They failed.
I'm not letting them off the hook. I gave them a D. That is literally one letter grade.
So you're saying because of like an effort level that you didn't see, which by the way, Uruguay were trash after the first two games, by the way. So I think they looked trash against the US, they looked trash against Brazil, and they looked trash against Colombia. So again, I think with each passing game, the things that you're talking about with the U.S., one being down a man and that being like, they fought valiantly but lost, I'll give you that. And I respect Panama more than the average person. I think that looks worse and worse because of what Colombia did. And I think saying the second point being, well, they fought against Uruguay and they made it tough. Well, everybody made it tough in the end against Uruguay except for goddamn Bolivia. Even Panama made it tough against Uruguay at some point. So I think you can say, and I'm going to say, it's a goddamn F. Just on the flip side, there are a couple bright spots, and we can transition to that next if you want. But I cannot for a team that has a portion of the fan base wanting a semifinal, for a team that has a portion of the fan base wanting a quarterfinal potentially at the next World Cup, or even better, who want Jurgen Klopp or a manager of that caliber to consider the national team position. Now, that was always lunacy, but you can see where the expectations are of the fan base. To have 3 points with a 2-0 win against Bolivia, I have to say, is an F.
Just because it's fan base expectation doesn't mean that it's valid. We talk about the echo chamber. We talk about the delusion. I did not have that confidence. I'm not a U.S. fan whatsoever, and I had quarterfinals, and I feel like a realist would have said quarterfinals, and even that objective they failed. You're correct, which is why they get the D. It is not a passing grade. I'm not talking like a D in college, like Ds get degrees. No, I'm talking D elementary school, because that's firmly where we are. Okay. That's firmly where we are. Okay. I took away, check this out. You get to the quarterfinal, you get to the semis, in my opinion, you get an A+. Right? Okay. You don't make that. Okay, so now we're looking at a B. A B. You don't get to the quarters. Okay, now we're looking at a C. Right? We fumble a game that we should have won with a red card. You move it down to a D. What keeps them from the F is that, frankly, hold on. I don't know if the mic is picking this up.
I'm scared about this wind, too. I'm looking at the camera. I think we're good.
An F for me would have been getting the same result, I guess, without the red card and having no bright spots, right?
Yeah.
So I'm saying that I have to give them a little credit, and the way that manifests is I give them one letter grade. At the end, it still doesn't matter to me because it's still a failing grade. It is the most you can do, failing. The most positive you can do without passing.
I think we're arguing semantics a
We
little
are,
bit here.
yes, correct.
I will say I agree with your ranking system and how the letter grade gets lowered and lowered by each hurdle that you failed to qualify.
I am a teacher.
In my opinion, not reaching the quarterfinals, that's already D for me. So I guess my scale is just higher up than yours. I'm not sure. But anyways, we talked about some bright spots, and obviously, we're talking about this, guys. If somebody thinks the U.S. gets a C grade, if you want to make that case, make it in the comments. I think there were some bright spots from this Copa America for the U.S., and I think namely Joe Scally, I think has continued to be a bright spot for the team since Serginho Dest went down. I think most of the fans, myself included, were a little worried, maybe very worried, when Dest was confirmed out. And I think you look at all 3 games in this Copa America, and the good, the bad, the ugly, you don't really look at Joe Scally and say this man was culpable for anything that went wrong. So I think he's one of the few winners from this U.S. squad.
One of the few.
Do you have another one? I got one more. I think there's another massive one.
Another massive one? Dude, honestly, I want to say Pulley.
I can't say Pulley.
You don't have to say Pulley, but
for me, he was only good against Bolivia. Bro, Nandez had him in his bolsillo, bro, his pocket.
Again, I'm going to say the effort was there, and if you have other people firing at the level that he was firing or what I thought I saw, then I think you get better results. Plus, 2 goals and an assist. That's a decent stat line for the Copa America.
I would counter that by saying if Pulisic and the rest of the team were on Balogun's level, who I think is my second massive winner, then I think maybe they do make the quarterfinals.
Okay.
I think Balogun's a winner because of his individual performances. Obviously, having a top 3 goal at the tournament, felt like he was the best attacker for the United States against their toughest opposition of the tournament in Uruguay. And if we look at the 9 depth chart for the U.S., if you want to say that, Ricardo Pepi was ass.
He was ass.
So Balogun went up. He went up 3 levels. Pepi devolved back in from Raichu down to Pikachu. Regressed. And I think Balogun, I think he laughing the U.S. soccer headquarters right now.
I don't think he laughing, but I think he has a nice little participation medal that he's just staring at in his room. Like, I could have gone to Africa.
Like I could have chosen Nigeria?
I could have chosen Nigeria.
Just to lose in an AFCON final?
You make a final. That's more than he's done
he's
with
the Nations League.
Apples and oranges here. It's just
that
preference
true,
at this
but
point.
I mean, if we're just going to trophy count as a fan base now, he does have a Nations League.
Yeah, that's true. That's
And
true.
Nigeria might not even qualify for the next World Cup, so let's not even.
Would you take a Nations League or an AFCON final?
Well, holy shit. AFCON, I'd take.
An AFCON final, not even winning.
Oh. Nations League.
You think so?
Once I got that in my bag and I filed my one-time switch to Ghana, I would take the final. You know what I'm saying? Like, you need something in the bank. Am I trophy list or do I have a trophy already? If I'm trophy list, give me the Nations League. If I'm like playing at Ajax or PSV and I'm like winning the league every year, I'll take the AFCON final.
I'll take the AFCON. Yeah, okay. That's valid. That's valid. Yeah, man, I think just going back really quickly before we talk about some more winners and losers, I think seeing that we had these guys, perform in the way that they did, that's something, or at least in regards to the mentality, that's something that I said before the tournament that I wanted to see. And that's a box checked, in my opinion.
And that's fair. If that's like a personal box check for you, I have no issue with that at all.
I think my thought process was, we're a young team, we're in CONCACAF, there's a large possibility that we might show up, be absolutely soft, and embarrass ourselves in this tournament. And I think the only embarrassing thing was that we didn't win that must win, right? And that was, in my opinion, due to the red card. So I guess you can boil it down to the red card, but frankly, even if we don't have the red card, my expectation was that we were going to get smacked by Uruguay. So I'm pleasantly surprised by that. But we can move on from that if you want to.
Yeah, I think another important factor with the Uruguay team and them as an opponent is you have to look at how Canada played against them, and you have to be like, okay, this Uruguay side, albeit maybe they didn't care as much, although I think that's a horrible excuse.
Yeah.
I mean, Canada put them on the back foot and should have won the game, and the U.S. didn't. And I don't know if it's probably a mixture of personnel, circumstance, and Berhalter.
Correct.
But
well said.
Again, it is what it is. Like, as the tournament went on, it looked worse and worse. If Canada, I'll put it this way, if Canada made it to the quarterfinals and Venezuela won 3-0, and then all of CONCACAF was just eliminated, Panama also got bodied by Colombia, then I think we all sit down and say, we as the federation are ass. And I think we all find a little comfort in that, in being collectively ass. But it turns out, no, maybe just the U.S. Mexico are just massive frauds at this tournament, at least.
Yeah. I think you could. You don't have to say that they're massive frauds, but you could point to, kind of like you said in your Mexico reaction vid, there were bright spots. Offensively, you guys have some sort of capability. It's just at the end of the day, you can't put chances away, right? Just like the United States, and again, a lot of that sample size of the United States stats is destroyed by having a very early red card. But like, I think we averaged like 3 accurate crosses a game, which to me smacks of intent and attempts and not actual, just inability to create a cross. Like, we didn't just lob balls over the top. Like, we had 2 open play goals and 1 from a set piece. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
To me, that's a positive because it's not the nothing ball that we've seen before. And speaking of which, I'm going to go into the biggest winners. I'm going to say that the biggest winners here, ironically enough, are the fans, and that is because the biggest loser, one of my biggest losers, Berhalter. Berhalter's out. He's out, and that's good for us. Potentially.
Well, we'll make a separate video about Patrick Vieira, who we've already talked about. I mean, I think he's a fraud. I'll just, spoiler alert, come out and say that. But I agree that getting Berhalter out is, I'm just going to say this.
It's a step in the right direction.
It's a step in the right direction, but it is no guarantee things will be better.
Correct.
And that is what U.S. fans need to keep in mind. Berhalter, Mr. Bare Minimum himself, did what? The bare minimum. There is a chance if you bring in somebody like Patrick Vieira, he might not do the bare minimum because my brother didn't do the bare minimum at Crystal Palace. He did worse than that. They had to call Roy Hodgson to come save the team.
And he did.
And he did. And now Glasner came in after that, and he got him balling. So just be careful what you wish for. That's all I'm saying.
Sometimes the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. And I think it's, in a team that needs to progress forward, the only option here, right?
Don't worry about it. I'll filter it out.
Okay, word. The best option here is to get rid of him, and now we just have to deal with the consequences of that. Hiring Patrick, well, yeah, anyway, we'll make a video about that.
It might be Wilfred Nancy. It might be Steve Cherundolo. I mean, we don't know yet.
We have no clue.
Apparently, Vieira terminated his contract, or they parted ways mutually with Strasbourg. So that's looking like the likely thing. But again, this is a Copa America thing, so we'll talk about Vieira another time. Big loser for me. I mean, bro.
Should we get the obvious one out of the way?
I mean, can I just say Cameron Carter-Vickers? I know that's not really a big obvious one, but like,
why?
Because he's just not a good footballer, dude. Like, I mean, he probably kill it in a bodybuilding or powerlifting competition, but just as a footballer, he's so painfully average. And I think I saw some tweets that I really agreed with during the Copa America. If Miles Robinson or, God forbid, Matt Miazga made the same mistakes that Cameron Carter-Vickers did in the game against Panama, they would have been crucified. And the entire MLS would have been laughed at. But because Cameron Carter-Vickers plays in a 2-team league in Scotland and wins trophies, again, zero context, I think people expect him to be, one, a little better than he is, and I think they give him a little protection. And this is why I've always said, if you play for Celtic, bro, I have no idea how good you are. I have no idea, because you're playing farmers and fishermen and
haggis makers,
haggis formers and bakers and coffee grinders, and I just don't know. They don't have that in Scotland.
Fly fishermen,
werewolf hunters, and because of that, I just don't know if you actually got the sauce. But evidently, in his little cameo that he had at this Copa America, dude was terrible. He was god awful against Colombia. So, I mean, the CCV. I mean,
my man had like 3 good tackles and some very questionable decision making. Like, I remember he came in against Panama and he did the job. It was nerve wracking, but yeah, a couple decisions in there. I think you can boil down what Panama's second goal was his fault, right?
Definitely partially his fault. I mean, I think his consideration as one of the better defenders. I mean, give my boy Mark McKenzie a chance, dude. That's all I'm going to say. Massive dub, Mark McKenzie, because, again, he just moved up in the depth chart, in my opinion.
Another easy loser, the one that, ironically, we haven't talked about, is Timothy Weah. You think it was a comfortable ride home in the, I don't know if it was a plane or a bus, but they had to have locked him in the bathroom, right? Or the brig?
We can only hope because, pain is an excellent teacher. And I think if he was in the locker room and everybody came together and they, sang a ballad together for Tim Weah, I mean, God forbid he was serenaded by the rest of the team and they're saying, "We forgive you, Tim. You're one of us." That might be a positive locker room culture, but it's not a winning locker room culture. I think Tim Weah, it's hard for me to say Tim Weah is a loser because I've never rated him for even a half second. He's a loser in the sense that he's an idiot, but he's not a loser in the sense that, like, he underperformed.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, and that's not hate for Tim Weah. We still haven't talked about Colombia. Daniel Munoz is an idiot too. Marcos Lopez is an idiot too for his headbutt against Canada. I mean, everybody who's going to throw a punch or an elbow or pinch your opponent's butt cheek and get a red, you're a moron.
Yep.
And I think it's a bit surprising from Tim Weah because he's typically a more chill guy. But I still think the team around him, you probably could have seen more against Panama, especially after Balogun says, "Let me put the team on my back and score a screamer." And to go up one, you got to think that a little more needs to be shown by his teammates. Minor loser, I would say, Tim Weah, but reputational, he probably took a big hit, I would say.
Yeah. And I think that's where I'm at, right? His team probably holds a certain amount of vitriol towards him and animosity now. Just the resentment that you build there. I mean, after that, I don't know who the better quote-unquote option is there, but I don't really want you on my team if you're going to be a liability like that. Like, he's running out of excuses, I guess, is what I'm saying. And, for me, that's an instant out there. If I know that you can't control yourself and you don't produce anything, like, what are you bringing to the table? One goal in the World Cup?
Yep.
What have you done for me lately? A red card. Goodbye.
A red card.
Yep.
And, probably the number 1 or number 2 scapegoat for the Copa America disaster.
Yeah. Behind Hard Rock Stadium security.
Oh, I'm talking just from the U.S. perspective, which
I
would
know.
be behind Berhalter.
I'm making a joke. That was funny.
It's cold. How does this Copa America group stage exit, in your opinion, affect the expectations for the U.S. at the 2026 World Cup? Can we safely say that most Americans, we'll focus on the American audience, the dream goal is semifinal, and the more realistic goal is quarterfinal? Do you think this has affected that in any way?
I honestly cannot speak to that until I see the next coach. But I think for your average person, like the layman, is going to look at this and be like, "Oh, we're bad.
Yeah.
Oh, we're bad. So do you think we can now I think it takes it down a level. Okay, do you think we can get out of the group? Can we make it to a quarterfinal? I think quarterfinal is the top expectation now. Now that could shift drastically.
It could.
You get a decent coach in, all of a sudden we're having different conversations. All of a sudden we have the potential for another piece of silverware before the World Cup, some good qualifying, some good friendlies, and all of a sudden then maybe a semifinal is looking like a Hail Mary, but a possible one, Odell Beckham Jr.'s done crazier things.
Yeah. He might be more talented than the U.S., but I agree. Look, the U.S. ain't making a semifinal. I'll say that.
No. It ain't happening.
I'll say that right now. But you know what? You bring up an interesting point. I'll answer my own question very quickly. Does it change expectations? I think for the diehards, no. For the plastics, yes. I think you're right. I think everybody's now looking at like, okay, we win a knockout game, make it to the round of 16, lose against a good team. Sounds about right.
Yeah.
I think that's what the layman is saying now. What you bring up that I find interesting to talk about is the Copa America and how people will now look at how the U.S. performed at this Copa America and they will say that this was a massive opportunity wasted, that a lot of people aren't going to convert into fans now because of this. And I completely agree with those people, by the way. I just find it funny that the tournament was treated as a warm-up tournament. It was treated as a practice for the World Cup. And you expected that mentality to translate to success on the pitch and to gain more fans. To me, it's almost like you treated this like a scrimmage, so your effort level matches that of a scrimmage, but you want the fans to buy in? I'm sorry, are you trying to win the Copa America? Are you treating it with the respect it deserves? Or is it a tune-up? What is it? Like, for me, it can't be both.
For me, it was marketed as a tune-up, and I think that's why I give them a bit of a bright spot, because I frankly expected much worse, being that was how it was marketed. I don't think that, on the whole, we showed up and treated it as a scrimmage. It didn't feel that way, but the end result speaks to something different, you know?
I guess my beef is it's not with fans at all. It's with the media. You know, It's like, where were y'all when the tournament was 2 months away and you could have ran a segment on your show and talked about it and maybe done 5 seconds of research into Panama into seeing that this is the best Panamanian team of all time, and that, you know, losing to them wouldn't be a disaster, and that the U.S. should respect this opposition because they can beat that ass, and they have in 3 of the last 4 meetings, by the way. 3 of the last 4 meetings, Panama beat the U.S. And then it's after the Copa America fiasco, then we got all these talk shows talking about it. And it's all Greg Berhalter's to blame, by the way, which I again think is a lazy analysis. I think it's really lazy, and I don't think the players deserve the protection. You could say either biggest winner or biggest loser for this player pool because, bro, I don't care if Cherundolo's appointed. I don't care if it's Hervé Renard. It doesn't matter. The players, they're out of health potions. They have no lives left. They have no revives.
We got no Estus flasks.
No.
In the chamber.
There's nothing. There's no resurrection stone. There's nothing. If a new manager comes in and the team still looks mid and still wins 5% of their games against top 30 teams in the world, it's the players. They're just not good enough.
Yeah. Do you know what an Estus flask is?
No idea.
Casual.
Yeah, probably.
Real ones will understand. Any other thoughts? Got anything else you want to say?
Is the U.S. the biggest loser from the entire tournament?
Maybe. Yes.
Who else?
I'm like thinking Peru because they played better than what I expected, but again, the end result was never a high expectation for them. Like I fully thought, I think I even said that I didn't think they were going to score a goal. So they exceeded expectations for me, potentially.
But they didn't score a goal.
Sorry, maybe I'm thinking of they wouldn't get a point, which they had that.
I get that, but, dude, I just think Peru are terrible. And
yeah, exactly.
They still were, they were defensively good, sure, but, I can't look at Peru and be like, God, they really fumbled that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is my expectation for them was low, and, they delivered pretty much according to expectation. Didn't expect much from Bolivia either. They were sitting right around they're in the same basket there, so to speak. Maybe Chile?
Yeah. I think there are 4 candidates. I think it's the U.S., Paraguay, Chile, and Ecuador.
I think, again, just as a guy who values work rate a lot, I think their performance against Argentina showed signs of life, and frankly, I think they stand more to gain from a new coach than potentially the U.S. even. But how that manifests, we will see. Anything else?
I got nothing else to say, guys. Let us know how you feel about the U.S.'s Copa America down below in the comments. Like I said, we're going to be doing more videos about the U.S. specifically about the managerial search. Of course, when somebody is eventually appointed, we will also give our opinion if it's a good, a good hire or not, because this is something the U.S. can't afford to fumble. Home World Cup coming up, 25 Gold Cup, which should be less embarrassing than the tournament usually is. Drop a like on the video if you enjoyed. Check us out on social media, links in the description. We'll see you guys in the next one.